now inside Hot Topics with Lady Charmaine and my girlfriends. I got my girl, Miss Mo Peace. How you doing?
Hi, Queen.
Hey, and we also got my girl, Miss Chandell, CC Christine. Hey, lady.
Hey.
And my girl, Marie, she's out today, not feeling well, but girl, we love you, so we know you're probably listening. So we love you. We missed you today. Well, today, everybody, this show is kind of I want to say it's a personal show today.
Yes.
This show is going to be very personal, and I'm going to tell you why. This show is going to be a very personal show. About 2 years ago, I let the audience know that I ended up joining Ancestry.com. Now, you got to be ready to join Ancestry.com because you might find some things. You might unearth some things. It's like taking a backhoe and pulling up some dirt, and you might find some skeletons there.
Yeah.
But during this, and I wanted to share this with everybody because I titled this show, it's called Fatherhood, What Your Kids Don't Know Can Hurt. Because it can come back to kind of haunt you. So I got on Ancestry.com, and I've been looking for actually my father's side. Now, my father's mother's side, I know them. But my father's side has always been a mystery. There's been a mystery to the entire family. He married my grandmother when she was 15 years old. He was 30.
Wow.
And he traveled with the circus. And then one day he just disappears. Nobody knew what happened to him. Nobody knew where he went. Nobody. So, of course, they had nothing to tell me. It was like, we don't know. So the name that they thought, the city and state that they thought he was from, they gave me that information. So here I am on Ancestry. And if anyone's on Ancestry, you know, once you put in like your ancestors' names, what happens is it starts pulling in information about them. On Ancestry. And so it started pulling in even what high school they went to. It even pulled in my mother's high school picture. It starts pulling in birth certificates. If they was in the military, it starts pulling in that. It starts pulling in everything about them. If they had kids, it just starts pulling up. But this man, the only thing that pulled up about him was when he was married to my grandmother. With their marriage certificate, their 1940 census, his draft card. But everything had my grandmother's name on it. There was nothing before 1939. And then there was a long gap until 1961 when he married somebody, and then they divorced in 1968, and then he falls off the face of the earth again.
Wow.
Wow.
So then, by the grace of God, as I was sitting on my bed, I heard the Lord say, that is not his name. My father is named after this man. It's not his name. So for a moment, everything kind of turned dark for me. Then who is he? How do I find him? So I ended up sending a message to a family on Ancestry. Well, come to find out, my grandfather, I found his father. His father disappeared from his family.
Wow.
Left and changed his name. That's why they can't find him. My grandfather did the same thing. He changed his name, met my grandmother. That's why we couldn't find him, because we don't even know what his real name actually is.
So it's generational.
It's generational. Father like son.
Wow.
So here I am now trying to find, who he is, but because he's changed his name, we can't even find him. So I wanted to do this show today because as I'm trying to find my family and trying to find my dad, a cousin, she had reached out to me. She was trying to find her father's family. Thank God I ended up finding the name of what my actual real name is. It opened up a door for her, and that's how she found her family, was through me finding mine.
Wow.
So Saturday, me and my husband, girl, let me tell you now, I'm telling everybody the story because we're about to get into it. So on Saturday night, I get a message from a young lady telling me that she needs to reach my husband. What? Who are you?
Yeah, say that again.
Right.
Why you emailing me?
Right. So I'm just like, hold on. So I screenshot it, sent it to my husband and said, this is what I'm talking about. She need to see you. I'm like, you know her? And he was like, no. I said, you sure you don't know her? So I was like, no, I do not know her. So I send a message back to her. And so, and I said, he said, he don't know you. She said, oh, I know he don't know me. She said, is he on Ancestry? I said, yes, he is. And I said, okay, are you a relative? And I'm being open. I said, are you a relative? I said, a child? I said, a cousin, a sibling? Because,
right.
I said, a child? Because, I don't put nothing past nobody today. And then she goes, oh, no, he's my cousin. He's my first cousin. And so she was trying to find her father's family.
Oh, wow.
Because her father got her mama pregnant at 15.
Wow.
Right. And so now she's connected to my husband. And I said, how many people have this story? This is just on Saturday. How many people have this story? And I said, I wanted to just talk about this today because as I'm finding out what my last name really is and a whole family that lives on the East Coast that I had never knew ever. But it's nice to meet them. But
Right.
it's like, who am I? Because that's how you feel. Who am I? And so I wanted to talk to fathers today. I did. I really wanted to talk. So if you are a father under the sound of my voice, I really wanted to encourage the men who know they have children and know that they're here. And I'm not talking to the men who didn't know, because you got some baby mamas that did not tell the baby daddy that he had a child. But for those of you that do, and when you play games and you change your name and you know you're married, you don't know what you're doing to that child that you just helped to form in the mother's womb, because that child got 23 of your chromosomes. When that child comes out and they want to know who they are. And a lot of us, we get our identities from our fathers.
Yes.
And we're trying to find who our father really is. And for some reason, we know who our moms are, but it's something about that daddy and the importance of knowing him, who he is, where he's from. It just does something to a young girl and a young boy.
Not only that, why do we act the way that we do? When
Right.
We're different.
Correct. And so that's why I wanted to really do this show today, because I want to encourage a man out there. If you know you have a child that's out there, please find them. Please find them.
Amen.
Please find them. Apologize to them. I don't care if you know the grandmama number, the auntie number. Get on Ancestry, get on 23andMe and find your children, because I guarantee you they are looking for you. And you're going to help bring that missing piece to them that was missing. That's going to help make them whole.
Absolutely.
We're talking about something deep today. We're talking about fatherhood, and what your kids don't know can definitely hurt. Okay, so that's what we're talking about right now. Now, Cece has a story, and man, when I think about your story, it's kind of deep, but I'm not going to tell it. I got to let you tell it. You go ahead.
So my story is a little different. It doesn't have to do with finding or looking for the parent or the family on like the Ancestry.com or the 23andMe. Mine has to do with actually the parent living in the same city. So my biological father, I call him the sperm donor, was married to my mother, and he was a hot mess. And one of the things I guess is kind of hard is when you're telling your truth of your story is not telling the story of other people. So I don't want to tell my mother's story,
Right.
but I'm going to tell my story, because there's collateral damage in other people's story that goes into mine.
Right.
So out of respect for my mother, who is my everything, I'm not going to tell her story. But my mother and my biological father, aka the sperm donor, divorced, and he chose not to have a relationship with me. I was very blessed. My mother remarried, and the man she remarried is my dad. But in regards to the one who created me, he doesn't choose to know my birthday. He doesn't choose to know me. I'm allegedly his only daughter. He lives in Sacramento, California. He has been a pastor. He's been a whole lot of stuff. And I'm putting it on blast. I don't even care anymore. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. But there's so much collateral damage when you have children and you're choosing not to have a relationship with your child. That impacted me of feeling abandoned and not worthy. And even though I had a father very present in my life who raised me,
Right.
it was those thought processes of the absentee father who's not there. Like, what's wrong with me? Am I unlovable that you didn't want me? And you know, the little girl's supposed to be the apple of her father's eye.
Right.
And then being in situations where one time at the college I was attending, my maiden name is very unique. So it's not like, you know, what you were saying about Johnson or something that's hard to track, right? But I had a maiden name that's very unique. So I remember the head of campus police had asked me a question. He was like, oh, your name is, you know, such and such. And out of respect to the sperm donor, I'm not going to say his last name. But, oh, your last name is such and such. Do you know this person? And I was like, yeah, that's my father. And they were like, oh, we didn't even know he had a daughter. And I'm standing right there. Or there's things about myself or my personality that is so unlike my mother that I know that I get it from somewhere. Or this man lives in the same city, and it's like, how do you know nothing about your child? How do you choose not to have a relationship with your child? That's a very hurtful thing. And I think a lot of fathers don't understand, regardless of whatever the reasons are, your marriage or your relationship didn't work out, that has nothing to do with your child.
Right.
And when you make a conscious decision not to be in that child's life, you put more of a burden on the mother to help raise that child. You put a burden on the child because there's questions that child has about who they are as an individual. There's questions I would love to be able to know. What genetical conditions do you have in your family that I need to be aware of?
Correct.
Do you have mental health conditions? Do you have, addictive personalities? Or like we talked about, when you so wonderfully shared your story about generational curses. What generational things do I need to know that I need to pray on me about, that it stops right where you were at and doesn't jump on me? Or not only that, just as a father. As a father, men, you need to understand, you set the tone for how your daughter sees other men. You're supposed to be the one that's the protector and the provider. And when you fail at that, if that woman, that little girl who grows into a woman doesn't have guidance in her life and isn't blessed to be able to have common sense, you lead her down a path of destruction because she doesn't know that she's worthy.
Right. Right.
And it's so simple as and if like you said, Lady Charmaine, if the fellas who are listening, and I pray that the fellas who are listening, if you've been in situations like that, you don't per se have to have a relationship with your child. That's the goal, I believe, of what you're talking about today. What we're talking about today. Apologize to those kids. I am 45 years old, and it took me 45 years of healing to forgive that man for hurting me. But it would mean everything for him to just say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry, not so much of what your mother and I went through, but I'm sorry that I chose to abandon you.
Right.
And I chose to take that on you. Because I lost so much of who I was for so long because of collateral damage of a man who didn't love me, who was supposed to be who is my father.
Right.
Like you said, the 23 chromosomes, half of me is you, homeboy.
Right.
I deserve that.
Right.
And all the other young children, men and women, they deserve to know, like you said, fight for them. And one thing I will say about my mom was the most amazing woman in the world to me. Because despite whatever their situation was, like I said, I'm not telling my mother's story, but regardless of what their situation was, my mother, to this day, has never spoken a bad word about that man. The only thing she's ever said to me is, sweetheart, we're going to allow you to make whatever choices you need to make. And you need to see and make choices for yourself. So I never had the opportunity to have a negative perception about him based on somebody filling my head with someone. Everything that I felt, the abandonment, the avoidance, not feeling worthy,
came from him.
Having hard times with relationships because it's like, oh, you gonna hurt me too? You gonna walk away from me? Came from him. He did that to himself.
And I'm going to let Mo speak in just a moment. Do you know that no matter how old a child gets, I don't care if they're in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, there is still a little girl inside that woman that longs to have a relationship with her father. There's still a little boy in that man that longs to have a relationship with his father. And I remember my mother passed away suddenly at 68 years old. This is going to make me cry. Excuse me. At 68 years old. And I remember when she would get off the phone from talking to my grandfather, they'd be on the phone, they'd be talking. She would call me on the phone and she said, Charmaine, I just talked to Daddy and we just talked a long time. We had a beautiful, but my mom, although she was 68, she sounded like she was 10 years old.
Wow.
And it used to bring a smile to my face because she loved her dad.
Right.
She loved, and he ended up dogging her out in the end. And we found after he passed away, and my mom and her sister. But she loved her father. And to hear that, even though she was 68. And that's why I want to encourage men out there, find your children. You may not even know where to look. If you know a relative, a cousin, an auntie, start there, because I guarantee you, inside of them, they still want a relationship with you. If they say they don't, it's because they're hurt.
And if they're in the
and
same
they don't
city,
know how.
find them.
Right.
There's no excuse.
Right. Is your phone on live? Oh, somebody said, do you know CC is live on her phone? No, her phone is off, so her phone is actually off. But anyway, so That's my thing. I just want to encourage a man out there as we go into Father's Day. Let this be a renewed Father's Day for you, that you found your child. Now, Mo, I know you work with children. You deal with children who deal with trauma. And if a father wants to reach out, first off, let's deal with the trauma that a child would have left from not having their father in their life.
Yeah, dealing with trauma because of the lack of a parent being absent. It does so many different things. It can trigger your health. Me being in education, I get to see children, the aftermath of children being sad, children feeling, just feeling unseen. And it all stems from, that parent that's not, that just didn't give them a chance to just, to look at them or hug them or hold them. And what that does is that trauma doesn't just stick with you as a kid. It goes into your adulthood. Mm-hmm. And then it's just almost like a generational thing. It's a cycle, right? Because you become a young woman or you become a young man, not knowing how to have relationships with people. And it's not just with relationships, with romantic relationships, but this could be on your job. You know how to communicate and deal with people because you haven't been taught that.
Right.
And you have this void and this wall up and this shell up that keeps you from really growing. And you become so toxic because you don't understand, man, if you could just acknowledge me.
Right.
But I would say on the flip, for the father, any father that's out there, one of the things that you have to realize is that give yourself permission to forgive yourself and reset yourself. Think about all the times that you felt abandoned, when you felt like no one understood you. It's almost like the same experience. Give yourself permission to sit in that, not to judge it, but to say, you know what, it's just time. It's time for me to stop hiding. It's time for me to posture myself and give something to someone bigger than just myself. Not to be selfish anymore, but be selfless. And be in a place in your life where you know that once you posture yourself to be accepting of the life that you lacked in, that you can start a new life, that you didn't never even give yourself an opportunity. And it won't be just beneficial to you and your child, but it'll be beneficial to the world as well.
That is so true. That is true. So what if there's a man out there who's listening right now and he's like, his heartstrings are literally being pulled right now. God is bringing that conviction and he's like, I need to reach out to my child's mother, or I need to find them, but I don't know what to say because it's been so many years. Would they accept me? Because, they have anxiety. Things are building up right now. I'm not really sure. Would they hate me? What would you say to that man on how to help him if he does make that connection? What can you offer them?
Like I said before, one of the things that I would offer to you is, in order for you to be able to get in this space, is to just acknowledge, right? And admit, there's just areas in my life that I lack. And it's okay to admit that. I have a life coaching program set up just for you today, men. I am going to choose 3 men. So if you reach out to me at mopeacelifecoach.com, I will set up a session for you, just for you. If you really, really, really want to get into this state of your life and reposition yourself to be honest about who you are and where you're trying to go. Sometimes we can't do these things on our own.
And how about why they did it? Because sometimes it's that why.
Exactly.
Because if you don't know the why, you're probably going to be bound to repeat it again.
Absolutely.
So getting down to that root within himself.
Yes.
Of what caused him to do that. What was it? You just didn't want to take care of a child, maybe because your dad wasn't there and you just didn't know how to be a father. What was that thing that caused you to run?
Well, I think if you go back to history, a lot of the reasons why men really had this whole thing of hiding and running was because they felt like a failure to provide. And so with the pressure of being like, I have to be a provider, I have to have money, I have to do this, I have to do that, it's like some people just freeze and they walk away, and finances becomes the rule of thumb for them. And love is not like, the love should be there, but the finances, because they allowed the world to kind of let them think that the only way that I can show you love is through money. And I think that's just a perception that has been lost, because because you don't work at a certain job doesn't define you that you're a less father.
But you also have those fathers who do have money. I want to talk about even entertainers.
Yes.
Who have babies going on. Even Nick Cannon got his 7th one coming. But you have men who are entertainers that got babies everywhere. And they'll take the paternity test, find out the baby is theirs, but they won't claim the baby as theirs. They'll just send a child support check for the child, and that's it.
The hush money.
There you go, the hush money. So don't nobody say anything. I'm doing my fatherly duty. Or you have men who were married, had money and children, and still left their children.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you have some men that are out there like that too.
Right.
So,
and that goes back to say that you're not being honest about dealing with your stuff.
Right.
When you don't deal with your root, you can mask that. And it's a lot of people that wear the mask because they don't want people to see who they really are. And when you're exposed, I would rather just be honest with my child and be honest with myself than having the world blast me because I'm not being a great parent.
right.
I just say, you have to sleep at night. I'm sure that just deals with your spirit when you're like, wow, I can't connect. I could be at my child's prom. I could be at my daughter and father's dance, but I missed it because of some choices that I made. But at this moment in your life, you can change it.
Right.
It can start right now.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned a beautiful word, selflessness. And people coming to terms with being accountable to themselves so they can offer the apology. But a lot of times I wonder, do people even take into consideration the collateral damage of what happens to that child?
No. Think about this. When you're hurt, you're not thinking how you hurt someone else.
Absolutely. This is true.
And so I think for that I don't think that's a space that you never think of. I think it's just a space where you're just existing. You're existing in a place where you're comfortable where you are, and you don't have to take a responsibility in those moments. And so I think it only really hits home until something happens to you. Something has to happen to you for you to be like, wow. Some people on their deathbed, they just say, you know what? I have a child. I had a daughter. I had a son that I wish I was in their lives. It's always something that's dramatic. But why wait?
Right, because you have children running around here with different last names. Okay, like even with mine. And this is my mom's story of what happened to her dealing with my brother. And my mother, she was 18, met a man, thought she fell in love, and he was her first. He was her first everything. And then she gets pregnant with my brother. He said his name was so-and-so Johnson. So then when she found out that she was pregnant, she told him that she was pregnant. And then that's when he told her that he was actually married with 3 children. So, of course, what a devastating blow that you are pregnant by a married man. And my mother, if you knew my mom, she didn't play that kind of stuff. So it was devastating to her. Then he disappears. So my mother goes on to have my brother, still gives my brother his last name, but not even knowing where he is. She couldn't find him to get child support or anything. One night, my aunt called my mom and told my mother, get to this club. It was 9 years later. He is in this club. My mother gets up, get dressed, run down to the club. They ended up talking, and then he admitted to my mom that his last name really wasn't Johnson. It was actually Gibson. So my brother is running around here with a totally different last name. So it's not connected to blood. It's just because it's connected to a lie. It's connected to deception. And how many children's names are connected to deception, connected to a lie? That like even my maiden name, because that wasn't my grandfather's real name. So trying to find out who you are, and where you come from.
That collateral damage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, and it happened to another cousin of mine. So people are trying to find out who they really are. They got last names that people just pulled out of the wood, because they didn't want you to actually find them. So my name is Johnny Jack.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then the woman gets pregnant. And so what that does to a child,
Identity.
it's the identity
Yes.
of what really happens, and then it continues on, because like I can even put my brother's father's name in my mother's obituary, who she just passed 4 years ago. Why? Because I don't want people to see my brother's father's last name and then see my brother's last name, and then they take their mind off the service trying to figure out, wait a minute, you know what I mean? Because now your mind is like, hold on, is that's his name and his daddy name? You know what I mean? So you're not even paying attention because y'all trying to put pieces together so I had to let them know I couldn't put your name in the obituary.
You know what else they don't think about too is, like when I was sharing my story, and I shared the story of how that parent was gone, but I was blessed to have a parent that was there. And even though when my mom remarried, and he's been in my life since I was 5 and I'm 45, that's my dad. You can't nobody tell me nothing different.
Right.
We even kind of look alike. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's my dad. We
Yeah.
look alike. But with the biological, even that was hard to see. Like, I had a man in the house every day who was a provider. He shows my mom love. He shows me love. You would never know that he wasn't the 23 chromosomes that
Right.
that was given to me to create me. But because of that absentee father, like what you were talking about, Miss Monique, and you were talking about Lady Charmaine, and we were talking about that collateral damage, I couldn't see past, this is what men do.
Right.
They run away. They abandon you. They get what they want, and then they leave. And it was hard to have that fine line between that, even though at home I saw love. I saw all that. And it goes back to that word, that collateral damage, that it's just time to stop being selfish.
And see, the reason why your story touches me, because your dad can literally be listening to this show right now.
Wow.
Because he's of the demographic of the people that listens to this show.
Right.
And he could be listening to this show right now and not knowing that you are his daughter.
Wow.
Well, if he's listening, Chandell Christine wants you to know it is okay to reach out to me and say that you are sorry. I am not going to cuss you out as I have in past. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just being transparent. So please forgive me for my brutal honesty. But it literally would mean the world to me if you just apologized and said that you were sorry. You don't have to say anything else. I'm not going to hold you responsible to what you've done before, but I need that for my own healing because I didn't deserve that. And I'm sorry to be emotional, but that's real. I think every child deserves that. If you don't do anything else, just say sorry.
Yes.
Especially because anyone that knows him knows that he is supposed to be a believer and a pastor. And you cannot be in the pulpit preaching to other people and teaching love and forgiveness, and you haven't even reached out to your own children to say that you're sorry.
You're now inside Hot Topics with Lady Charmaine and my girlfriend Cece and Miss Mo.
Hey.
We are talking about what your basically fathers, what your kids don't know can hurt. And we're going to get into Cece's question, but I wanted to make this point because there was a young lady, she was going to call in to tell us her story. And what happened was she ended up meeting a young man, she was telling me. And she said she met a young man. They liked each other. They was real attracted to each other. So, you know, they got together, started kissing, making out. They did everything except go to first base. She said, while they were making out, she said something didn't feel right. So she just stopped. So she asked him, what is your last name? And he told her the last name. Mind you, she's been trying to find her father, and that was her father's last name.
Wow.
So she was like, no, we can't do this. Then she did more digging. That young man was her first cousin.
Oh,
She
wow.
said, when I found out it was my first cousin, she said, I threw up because they were that close to going to bed and having sexual relations.
Wow.
But she said she had this gut feeling something told her to stop. And she did. And thank God she did. And that is why, fathers, you need to find your children so they can know who their people are.
Right.
So this does not happen.
Right.
People going around marrying brothers and sisters. My roommate in college, I went home. Her uncle told me the funniest story. I thought it was funny, right? When he was laughing. But I was like, oh my God. He was saying when he was in high school, it was this girl he wanted to date. He was talking to her. He said she was fine. And it was a trip because she ended up looking like his sister, right? Because she was really pretty, so I was sitting in there with her, really pretty. And he said, look like my sister. He came home, told his dad, he found the one. He in high school, and told the dad the name, and the dad was like, you can't date her. And he was like, why? So he ended up having to pull his wife, and now while he's telling me the stories, he had to pull the wife and all the kids into the room to talk to them and tell him why he couldn't date the girl, because that was his daughter.
Wow.
And the girl lived around the corner.
Wow.
Ooh.
In the neighborhood, she lived around the corner. And that's why the girl looked like his sister. And while he was telling me the story, I was just looking at his mom, because she was the wife. And she just sitting in her little rocking chair, because the whole family knew. But that's why it's so important for you to find your children so they can know. Because you don't want them marrying cousins, first cousins, siblings. You have no idea, because you're trying to keep secrets, because you cheated on your wife, you cheated on your girlfriend, and you were selfish, and you didn't want to destroy that relationship. If you didn't want to destroy that relationship, then you should have never slept with her.
Period.
Right.
Period. Now, Cece, what was your question, Miss Mo?
So my question to you, Miss Mo, is everyone deserves to know the truth, correct?
Correct.
But what happens when other people feel it's their duty to tell someone the truth?
What do you mean?
Is it your truth? It's their duty to tell somebody what your truth is?
So, for example, let's use the caller that called in, and and caller, if you're listening, no disrespect when I ask this, I'm just asking a question about people speaking the truth. So, let's say that there's a family secret going on, right?
Okay.
So that person's not learning because they did the 23andMe or the Ancestry.com. Somebody's just telling them, or like someone says, for example, Monique, such and such isn't your dad's, this person is. They're feeling the need to tell you the truth at the most inopportune time. It's not like where you're sitting down and you're having a very candid conversation about family and life. They're telling you their truth to kind of spite you.
Right.
Because they want to hurt you.
That was how I meant to phrase the question.
Yeah, that's always tough to process when someone kind of gives you a truth when you're like, whoa, I wasn't even expecting it. But sometimes we can't expect people to kind of have the mindset that we have. True. That we would set it up in a restaurant or in an environment that we can talk about it. And sometimes the truth just doesn't come out the way that we want. Either way, if we're in a restaurant or someone just tells you some information, the thing that happens is that you have to process and you have to accept your truth.
Right.
And you have to sit in that. I really would say the best way is, how do you respond to your truth?
See, this is my question. And I kind of get what you're saying as well, Cece. Because when it's not the person's place to tell you that truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I know a lady who ended up telling a young lady who's supposed to be her niece that her father wasn't her father. That was not that woman's place. Right. It's the young girl's mother's place to tell her that.
Right. I just want to say real quick that, the pain when you feel abandoned and you feel just, unseen and unheard and misunderstood, that I just wanted to let you know that you are enough.
Yes.
Even when you don't feel it.
Right.
Even when you're still trying to tap into your identity and you're trying to say, well, why do I do this and why do I do that, or why do I lack in these areas? And you want to put a blame on it. And sometimes things are just hereditary. Some things just come with you,
right,
and you can't explain it, but you are enough. And so when you get in that space, one of the greatest things that you can do with your mind, because the mind is so powerful, is when you're in this space and you're feeling over emotional. I just do this thing and I say, I just turn that switch off. I turn that emotional off, and I say, you know what? I am enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to sit in this space.
That's right.
I can feel it. It may even sting, but I do not have to stay there. It may even come up later on today.
Right.
But even the power that I have in me, I can turn it off again. When I'm ready to really deal with it and really process it, where I can really verbally talk about it and get the help that I need.
Right.
I think that's when you can turn your switch on, because then you're vulnerable and you're saying, you know what, now I can deal with my stuff. But you can't deal with your stuff alone.
Yes.
Right. You need help because you have to deal with that rejection.
Yes.
You have to deal with the disappointment. in like deception, like, cousin, thinking it's one person and it's not the other person. And, so there's a whole lot of stuff that has to be impacted, and you can't do that in one day.
No, it's
There's
a
going to
process.
there's going to be a lot of tears. There's going to be a whole lot of stuff that's going to come out. It's just going to be a lot of crying. Just needs boxes of tissue.
And a lot of uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah,
tissue.
I say hard conversations.
Right, it is. It's those very hard type of conversations that need to be had.
Absolutely.
But hard conversations bring healing.
Yes.
So fathers, remember, and mothers, that conversations bring healing and restoration, not only for your child but for yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Look in your mirror and just say, yes, I dropped the ball in that area, but I can pick that ball back up and I can bounce it. I may not be able to do it the way that I used to do it. And I can't go back to that, but I can start a new chapter.
In Ancestry and these DNA sites, they do help bring families together. Sometimes they can tear them apart, but do bring them together. I have a cousin, she went on Ancestry looking for her father's side of the family, but it was Ancestry let her know that her daddy was not her dad.
Wow.
So she has been now trying to find her biological father, because her mother was saying that her mother ended up being raped by a man. Wow. And so she told my cousin that was her father. Well, it actually was somebody else.
Wow.
And so she didn't find out until she did the Ancestry, and she looks like them. You know what I mean? But the whole time she thought it was somebody else.
Wow.
And so she didn't find that out until after her mother had passed away, because her mother thought that it was this man the whole time. So so she was like, okay. She's getting close, to really because I guess her dad had spelled his name a couple different ways. And so that's just what I'm just saying. I know in that one, her mother can help because she just thought it was somebody else. But for those who are aware, and I know we're going to be ending the show, but I just really want to encourage the men out there, if you know that you have children, you may not even know where they are right now because it's been so many years. It's been a long time. And so you've lost touch even with the mom. But like I said, if you can find a cousin, if you could find them, if you could, like I said, Google them. If you are on social media, a lot of people are on Facebook. A lot of people are on Instagram. There are ways that you can find them. Just reach out to them. Yes. Because they have that missing piece until they meet you, talk to you. I know it's probably been a while. It might be some bad blood. It might be some tension in the relationship. But just like that caller who called in and her son's father was able to reach out to him, which was a beautiful thing, that he ended up being murdered months later. You never know what might happen because tomorrow is not promised. Just let your child know that you love them and ask them for forgiveness. And then if you are able to have a conversation, explain to them why you probably did what you did, because you may not have been mature enough. You were immature. It's okay to just let it all, let the ego go. Because guess what? Your children don't even care about your ego.
No.
Right. It's your ego that got you in this situation anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let all that go and you talk to your child, no matter how old they are, because they still need to hear from you. Yes. And if they don't accept your apology, guess what? God is still yet proud of you because you did it.
Absolutely.
You asked for forgiveness. Now it's on them.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now it's on them, and then let them work through the issues of them being able to forgive you, because that's going to be a process, because there's probably so many things that they're looking at that you probably weren't there for. You probably wasn't there for the birthdays. You wasn't there when they probably fell down and had a boo-boo or went into the hospital, or, for proms and all those other things. So they're looking at all the things you missed out on their life, and you're looking at it too, if that was even of importance to you. So they have to work through all of that now, being able to call someone dad, and they're probably not even there yet. They're probably gonna call you by your first name because they probably never uttered those words, dad or my father. That's gonna feel foreign to them.
Right.
And so, and just really earning that right to be able to, really speak into their life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's good. Mm-hmm. That's really good. I would want to add to that too, is that, before you ask for forgiveness, forgive yourself.
There you go.
Forgive yourself first. And, take this in, that even if you do the work of asking for forgiveness, remember that don't expect people to just embrace you. It's a process. It's a mental process that happens. And everyone, some people will come back in open arms, and some people will just be like, they have to process this whole thing. So don't get discouraged if you're expecting something just to happen overnight, because it didn't take overnight to get here.
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
That's right.
you know, be able to heal and allow yourself to heal with the person that you may have hurted or offended, and be okay with that. Be okay. Take that in and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I dropped the ball.
Right.
I wasn't what I should have been to you. But guess what? Today is the day for reset.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just let your child know that when you are ready, I am here.
Yes.
Don't try to force it.
Don't force it.
When you are ready, I am here, and you have to let them deal with that.
Yes.
And it's honestly just that easy.
Yeah. Just giving them that space.
Just that easy.
Yeah.
To deal and to process.
Yeah.
That's-
I just say, hey, if you didn't know that you were a king or a warrior, I speak it into you. Now just be that.
And that's the most humbling thing you can do.
Yes.
Is to go to your child, even if your child is still young. They may not be of age as an adult to have even if they're 4, 5, they're little. It's still not too late.
Right.
It's still not late because they're little. And so they don't even know. You know
Right.
what I mean? And so they're, if you're introduced to this is your dad, you know what I mean? That's going to be so cute. You know what I'm saying? And build that relationship from there.
And if I may, for fathers who are hearing this near or far, the words that were spoken, if it is on your heart to reach out to your child, especially if they're adults, understand that when they're adults, even though the conversation may be hard or even building up the courage to be able to have that phone call, understand that adult children have gone through things, and although they may not like what has happened to them, they understand that life throws curveballs and no one is perfect. We all have made mistakes, but as Miss Mouthpiece and Lady Charmaine have eloquently said, be accountable for your actions, and all you have to do is just offer sincere forgiveness.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it.
gonna
Ladies, thank you so much for coming on the show. Miss Mo, if people wanted to find you, how can they reach out to you?
Yes, you can go to mopeacelifecoach.com to find me, and you can actually go to Miss Mouthpiece, which is spelled MISSMOUTHPEACE. That's my name, Miss Mouthpiece or Mopeace. Life coaching, lifecoach.com.
Amen. Cece?
I am Chandell Christine. You can find me at Sippy Time, the number 4, and you can contact me, and I can give that drink to you to help you get the courage you need to have the conversation.
Right,
We can do a
exactly.
mocktail or a cocktail, whatever you need. I can help you.
Right.
I can help you get the courage to call into Lady Charmaine show
Yes.
and talk about this, or give you the courage to call Miss Mouthpiece and get the much needed counseling you so deserve. So
Absolutely.
you can find me on Instagram at Sippy Time, the number 4, and then spell out YOU, or you can find me on my website, sippytime.org.
Wonderful. Again, thank you so much, ladies, for coming on the show. And I am Lady Charmaine. You can follow me on social media on Instagram at iamLadyCharmaine. If you're on Facebook, Lady Charmaine or Lady Charmaine Live. And for my Black Sisters Making Friends group right there on Facebook, we'd love for you guys to definitely connect. And if you have not gotten or haven't been given an opportunity to try my Mary and Berries, make a homemade handcrafted body butter mousse, you can actually go online to Mary, MARY, and berries.com. Go ahead and check it out. I look for it. And also, you can also catch me in the pop-up shop located right here in Arden Mall. Mary and Berries Beauty is right there.